Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Messerschmitt, Wandering here, back with another tank review. And today is this little thing. It's a not especially good tank, but I still like it. It is the Tier 5 Japanese premium tank, the Type 3 Chi-No-Kai. Now, the history of this tank, it was just planned as an upgrade. Because the other Japanese tanks were mainly, and I'm not kidding, Teke. Yeah, the less said about that thing, the better. Not the, oh, I have it, that was also experimental. So this was simply Chi-No chassis with an improved turret. So Kai is, as I heard, stand for improved. So this is basically a Chi-No with an improved turret and a better gun. I'll come back to gun later. So yeah, this was just an experimental tank. And let's go on to the stats. It has a okay 450 hit points. For this tank, let us compare it with the normal Chi-No. The normal Chi-No has, well, with the upgraded turret, I guess it has the same amount of hit points. Just make sure it actually has an upgraded turret, and yes, it has. So, basically, same hit pool as the Chi-No. I should actually not close the Chi-No just yet. We'll just open up the free guns that the Chi-No gets. I just store them over here for later, so you can take the gun reference. It weighs a, it's very light, so it only weighs 21.75 tons. That's really light. Also, how light is the Panzer IV? Weighs 11 tons. Yeah, it weighs about twice as much as this thing. So and it does, and the Sherman weighs about 150% more. So it's a pretty light vehicle. It has a horrible 240 horsepower engine. Not great. But it gets a pretty okay for a Japanese medium top speed of 38.8 kilometers per hour. It's not the best, but I mean, it holds. In the most situation, that should be enough. Traverse speed is a really good 38 degrees a second, but that's the thing with Japanese tanks. And also another thing with Japanese is, well, oh boy, the armor. This thing has hull 50 in the front, 25 at the sides, and 20 at the rear. Absolutely abysmal armor, and the strongest place this thing is the gun mantlet, but the rest of the turret is 75, 50 and 50 in the rear. Weak spot is the commander cupola, driver's hatch, machine gun port, but really you don't need to aim for weak spots. Actually giving you a tip on the Chi-No-Kai. If you're firing high explosives, hit it right in front, right here. That plate is extremely thin. I believe it's only something like 20, it can be as much as 7 millimeters for all I know. It's really thin, and lower glacis, I mean, you don't need to aim for weak spot at this thing, but you know, if you're a howitzer, aim at the front, because it is a shot trap for high explosive. Artillery loves blowing these things up, so be wary of that. But that's the thing with Japanese tanks, they all have very little armor, except from, you know, the massive super tank thingy. Yeah. Rate of fire is 12 rounds per minute, so that's quite good. It could be better, certainly, it could be having. The turret traverse is not bad, it's okay, but again, could be better. View range, abysmal. Signal range, not very good either. So, kind of like Russian there. Now we go to the cannon. it is the Type 5, and well, let's just close these two. So, tell me the difference between these two guns. I'm waiting. Exactly. There is not a single difference between these two guns. They are the exact same cannon. So, it basically has the top gun on the normal Chi-Nu. Well, it has a quite good for its tier 124mm penetration, so it should get a long way, but the other type of armor piercing does not yield a lot more power, so I don't pack a lot of them, although they're quite cheap. Average damage is 125, so lacking there again, but again could be worse. Penetration of high explosive, they're actually quite good, so you could consider having high explosive in this thing, especially if you're shooting at the side of another Chi-Nu Kai or Japanese tank. You might even penetrate. But again, it doesn't, it doesn't do a lot more damage than a normal armor-piercing round. The accuracy is quite horrible, and the aim time is 2.3 seconds. That's a long time to wait, even with my setup, the equipment, which is gun main drive and vents for the aim time. It's still pretty long, as you're going to see in the replay. Also pack a medium caliber tank and rammer to get the reload speed just a little bit more up, because the better reload speed you have in a medium tank, the better you're off. As I mentioned, the armor is completely abysmal. If you get hit, you're going to be penetrated. In splash damage, it's going to really fuck this vehicle up. So yeah, but if you compare this gun to the gun on the Panther, that will be the Panther M10. Right, like so, and we take the guns side by side. You see there's really not a whole lot of difference. It has more penetration, but the damage is almost the exact same as the L75. Oh, no, not the L75, sorry, the L70. So they're pretty similar guns. They actually have the same aim time and dispersion. But the thing that doesn't stand here is that the gun has it's take also some time before the dispersion sets in and it actually starts to aim, and that's a really long time. You cannot fire this thing on the move. You have to be stationary. Unless you're on point blank range, you have even on medium range you have to yeah, even at a little bit closer than medium range, you're going to have problems. So don't fire on the move. You're going to see an RNG in the replay, but not count on it. Actually, fun fact: when the American Shermans were encountered, I believe, on Hiroshima by these. By Teke and the not the Chi, it wasn't the Chi-Nu that they encountered there. It was, I believe, it was the Chi-He or Chi-Ha. But actually, they're a 30 caliber machine gun in the front, the bow machine gun, could actually penetrate their armor. That's going to give you some idea how shit these tanks actually were during the war. They were completely useless against the Americans. They were good in the Chinese campaign, but against the American Sherman, it was like in Europe where there were Shermans against Tigers. It was the same situation. But this gun existed actually in it existed. It was used on Hiroshima, but not in a tank turret. It was used as a gun you can set up an anti-tank gun, and this thing was the only gun that the Japanese developed, especially for tank destroying, that could destroy the Sherman. So the Shermans did run up against these things, and they were destroyed by them. And it's much harder to find an emplaced anti-tank gun than to find an anti-tank. So these things are really hard to spot. You hear this all the time when Americans talk about the war, how they really were hard to spot where the Japanese position were, and the same thing with these guns. They were also used as artillery guns as well. But yeah, these guns were used, or at least a version of them. So now you know a little bit of story and you've been through the details of the vehicle. Let us just go through crew skills before we go into the replay. For the commander, I'm not going to try to pronounce their names because I'm horribly shit at Japanese. Or I cannot speak Japanese at all. I will go for the commander. View range is quite bad, so I will consider recon, but also jack of all trades, because as I said, this thing has abysmal armor. A sixth sense could be actually useful in this thing. Or camouflage. This thing is actually quite large. If you take the Chinikai here, and we go on and compare it to the German Panzer IV, it's a bit larger. It's about the same size as Panzer IV. So you could put camo net on this thing, and then it could be more stealthy, but that could be an option. But I like to, in the medium tank, I like to be the one that, again, support. So that doesn't fit my playstyle in this tank, which very often gets me completely destroyed in it. But never mind that. Repairs might be okay, but again, if you detrack you're pretty much dead, so not very useful, but maybe for the loader, I know. The gunner you should start with snapshot and then exchange it for Deadeye. Maybe designated targets, but it's a large maybe, I don't know. But yeah, the snapshot and then to Deadeye. I shouldn't remove him. Personal file. For the driver, off-road driving, not a bad idea. This thing struggles over terrain. Smooth ride, that could be absolutely useful. But again, firing on the move in this thing is nothing I would recommend. Or clutch braking, again, the traverse is quite okay, so I don't think you need it. Radio operator, situation awareness. The situational awareness or signal boosting. A call for vengeance. I don't take call for vengeance or relaying, because number one, you're paper tank, so call for vengeance, you can be destroyed at long range, and relaying maybe, but if you have to choose between relaying and two others, go for one of the others. If the commander has Eagle Eye, not Eagle Eye, but recon, then swap it for signal boosting. And if the commander has jack of all trades, go for situational awareness. That will help you. The loader, as I said, could go with repairs, because they're just perks down here. So yeah, go for loader and go for repairs or firefighting. The engine has a 15% chance of bursting into flames, but really happens to me in this tank. It happens very much in Chinese tank like this thing that seems to burst into flames every time somebody looks at it. So that was the garage part of the Jinjukai. Now we will jump into the replay. Okay, here we are at the replay, and we're starting our game on the southern side of this map, and we are advancing towards the enemy base and the enemy in general. You're going to see here how the Jinjukai performs when it is top tier. When it's lower tier, you're pretty much fucked. I mean, yeah, you are. You have absolutely no chance to do anything meaningful, because you know your armor is pretty much non-existent. I see a T-70. I try to get a shot in at him, but I don't hit him, and he spots me and reverses. I see the Crusader is really busy. Again, as I've been saying, don't fire at the move on this thing. Then the Crusader does that. First shot bounces, incredibly enough. Second shot's hit, and I see the Sherman. Let me just... yeah, he hit me pretty much spot on. You could see the tracer. I will and look, watch this shot. Complete RNG, and the Sherman barely misses. Look at that. That was pretty damn close. Holy crap. If he had hit me there, he would have killed me. There's no question about it. So I am stressed out now, but still advancing, and see the Sherman is again trying to attack. He gets hit once, and I take him out. So now we are leading really well, 7-3. Waiting for the T-70 because I assume he was going to appear over, but he does not. So I begin my advance as well with the rest of my team. Again, really tempted to take that T-70 out, because with the autocannon he can really fuck my day up. T-34 is behind the hill, and there is the Romberwagen, or the Demented Waste, as I always call it, because that is a toilet of tank. Now, I saw that he had his gun towards me, so I do not go over, and instead take just pot shot at KV-1. Again, you can see that the engine is not that good on this tank. I now attacked the Romberwagen too. Again, he's busy reversing, but not enough, and I destroyed him. So, well, the aim time is not as terrible as I say, but it feels really more horrible than it actually is. So keep that in mind. Just misses the Su-85B, and there's the other Jinjukai. Now I just want to reverse up as far as I can. Jinjukai is not getting out again, and the Panzer IV just destroyed the Su-85B. I suppose he did that with the howitzer. Now you're going to see what happens when artillery hits Jinjukai. Boom. So that was a quick review in this Jinjukai. Is it worth it? To be honest, no, not really. If it comes from a sale, then yeah, pick it up then. But unless you really are into Japanese medium tanks, this is not the best tier 5 medium tank you can get. It really is not. There's spades of better medium tanks, like the Panzer IV Hydrostadt is a lot better than this thing in any respect. And well, the T-25 is also better than this, and well, It is not. I wouldn't pay 1,500 gold for it. I pay maybe 1,000. Right. That's I wouldn't pay 1,500, but around 1,000. That's okay. Then I'd take it. But if you mastered it, if you mastered not the Chinese, the Japanese medium tanks, and feel comfortable with them, or driven out of light tanks, then you will find this quite fun to play. Actually, you just have to get used to the play style of it. But if you're driving things like German tanks and nations with a little bit more armor on them, you're not going to find that this is a really fun tank to drive. You're going to find that sometimes it's tedious because you're doing things that you shouldn't do in Japanese tanks that normally would be fine in other nations' tanks like German tanks. So as I said, unless you're down the Japanese tech tree already, I suppose you should at least look and wait, or at least wait until it gets on sale before you buy this thing, because you might be disappointed. But anyway, guys, that was the replay and review for today. Like this video if you want to see more of the things I'm doing, World of Tanks, War Thunder, etc. Then subscribe to my channel, and please, I'd be happy to if you could leave a comment. What do you think about the Japanese Chi-No-Kai? And maybe also how it compares to other Japanese medium tanks. Anyway, guys, that was all for me. Keep your barrel clean, your ammo dry. I'll see you on the battlefield.